now today with his team. But it's great to see all of you, of course. We have a very, very special guest today. I have been waiting for this workshop because it's a very unique composition that Viraj has created in terms of really sharing insights and strategies on how to crack that selling piece which so many of us struggle with. You, of course, all have received his introduction, but I just want to give a big shout out to Viraj. He is known as a motivational speaker, a leadership guru, someone who's been in the coaching space and in the B2B space for about 15 years now, and is recognized by all of the leading corporates in terms of the kind of level of excellence in the kind of work that they curate and they do with them. So I think if there's somebody with a wealth of experience who we could really learn from today, I can think of no one better, and I know how valuable his time is. So to me, it's just been really a huge gesture that he took out the time to spend the evening with us here today at Ladies Meet. So can we give a big
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for getting me started and for that nice introduction. Thank you. And I must say, by the way, that while I do a lot of what I'm doing here right now with corporate, but I don't so often get the opportunity to do it with a cohort like this one. Also, I must forewarn you that I do talk a lot, and I'm used to talking for 2 straight days. So a 1 hour format for me is a very insecure format. I like, 1 ghante mein main kya karunga, right? Because usually this goes on for like 6 hours a day. That's how most of my workshops are. So I actually spend a lot of time slicing, dicing what I put together to ensure that it kind of is that much more relevant for all of us here, all right? But in this 1 hour, whatever we do together, for me, it's literally just tickling your fancy. Idea is to say that if there is something within this 1 hour that appeals to you, we can have deeper conversations around it, right? So what I'm going to throw out is literally bits and pieces of what this otherwise as a journey program plays out. So Don't Sell for me is a journey, but bits and pieces from that I think will be most relevant. I'm putting it out here, and like I said, happy to deep dive into any of these aspects with all of you, right? Ava, I must say, and I was telling this to her, but I wanted to make sure that I put it out here in front of everybody. So maybe because I'm not too familiar with the B2C format of doing things, because majority of what I do is with corporate, I would probably not have realized that you've got such a beautiful, community which is thriving the way it is thriving. Kudos, brilliant stuff, very well done. I was mighty impressed. So I accepted the invitation, and then I looked at the Instagram page. I was like, shite, she's got a lot going on. so yeah, it's good to be here. I feel rather honored to get this opportunity. Thank you so much for enabling it. Right. Okay, folks. So let's make the best of the hour that we have together. All right. And feel free to stop me anywhere you'd like to. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, but I'd also like it if you ask me a bunch of questions. So don't let it be a monologue. Wherever you feel that you need to kind of cut me and ask me a question, or just have any point of discussion or point of reflection, feel free to do so. All right? Okay. So don't sell. That's what we're doing here today. And I would like to kind of, while Abbas introduced me, I thought it's a good idea for you to know a little bit of the background to what is it that I do. I'm going to come back to this question in a bit. Okay, or actually, let me just stick here for a bit. So for me, this Don't Sell program happened for the first time. By the way, maybe about 20 times a year, I would take this program to various corporate. All right. But it happened for the first time with Accenture, I think sometime in 2013. So we had done a series of programs for them. And then at some point in time, one of the senior HR folks reached out and said that, your selling skills program, if you can do that with our senior consultants. I said, but I don't do a selling skills program. In fact, I'm not good at selling. So she said, no, you sold your program to us. We're a consulting firm. What we offer to our clients, you offered it to us. We bought it from you. So you do a good job of selling. Why don't you curate a selling skills program for us? So I said, because I don't sell, the program should be called Don't Sell, right? So it's the it's the non-intrusive, the non-push way of selling that we're talking about essentially, right? And I truly believe that while you continue to do whatever sales efforts you do, this school of thought or this shift in mindset or going from sell to don't sell is a great way of keeping your potential customer engaged, and not just your potential customer, but also, I think, other stakeholders who are relevant to every business. And when I say that, I mean, in our case, for example, our vendor community gets us a lot of business. In our case, our former employees refer us all the time, right? So for me, don't sell as a philosophy applies not just to the customer, but every stakeholder to your business or to your brand, right? So having said that, my first question to everybody here really is, what's your elevator pitch? What do you sell? While you've told me already what your brands are, but I'd like to hear that when you meet somebody who's a potential customer, usually when they ask you, what do you do? Or let's say you bump into somebody in a flight and they could be relevant to you for recruitments, could be relevant to you for your jute brand, could be relevant to you for your digital marketing piece or the influencer marketing piece. How do you introduce yourself? What do you sell? Go for it.
As I said, earlier I used to, use their social media consultancy. Straight away go down to it, depending on the kind of circle I am. So let's say if it's only individual whom I'm working with, we don't do B2C, and we do servicing. So I just said we build thought leadership.
Nice. We build thought leadership. Good point. Good point.
I think I have so many people actually confused that what do you do? What do you mean by thought leadership? So while it's a personal branding kind of an experience, but becoming a voice in your community definitely matters.
Right.
And
I agree.
Amazon, when it comes to the followers, well, she said that 10,000. If your follower is not somebody who's engaging with you, I don't think. I think it's a very. That's what we believe. It's a very cosmetic price for that one.
Right.
So yes.
I hear you. So what you're saying is a good conversation starter to say that we build thought leadership, and that kind of gets the curiosity going, and from there you would open up to talking more about, elaborate more on what you do. Fair enough. Let's hear it from some of the others.
So because I have a very clear niche, so I like to talk about that. So, with Kidstat is a one-stop place for non-toxic, sustainable, and made in India toys. So it's just something that kind of talks and gets to the point. And then the person is more interested, then I would obviously elaborate. But it's like an umbrella brand that covers a lot of toys, like local, made in India, non-toxic. Nothing else.
Excellent. Sounds good.
So for me, I think any conversation starts from the point to be able to sell your own self first. Right? So if you are, say, picking on your example, if you meet somebody, right, you don't know anything about that person. If you're in an active sales, you would like to search about the person before, say, reaching out to them. But
Right.
with that kind of a setting, you don't know anything.
Correct.
Right? So what is the way in which you can draw out some common cues? Like maybe you're reading something, the person is reading something, showing interest, introducing your own self, selling that thought first, and then building on to do it further.
Nice.
Right? So that's on that. And if I'm in a formal setup, then I prefer to use two things. One, which is known to people, and second, which is not known, so that I'm able to build the
Interesting.
conversation further.
Interesting.
So I'm a part of a wealth management firm. That's what a lot of people know. But wealth management, if done in a more focused, in-depth manner, is now called a multi-family office.
Correct.
Now that's the thing which a lot of people don't know.
Right.
So wealth management known and that's unknown. That can be elaborated further in a manner in which maybe right at some place I get the opportunity to drive the discussion.
Right.
At least at the beginning, and then let the other person engage.
Nice. I like that thought there that, tell them something they know, but also give them something they don't know. So again, like a curiosity builder and a conversation starter, right? I mean, very often, for example, when people ask me, what do you do? And that's a very Delhi question, by the way. You don't necessarily get asked that in the first few minutes in most other places in the world, right? But what do you do is among the first few things. And where do you live and what do you do, right? It's like they're profiling you right there and then. So very often now I say, as little as possible. So when somebody asks me what do you do, I say as little as possible, right? So that's how I've started doing it now, especially in social settings. I would not necessarily say that to a client, but yeah. But yeah, so that's a good one. I like that thought. Anything else? How do you introduce yourself or your business to a potential customer?
Also, you talk about where you kind of you specialize in, the kind of market you kind of deal in, and why you would be kind of relevant there to them there. Because obviously you understand the market way more, and you understand the elements required in the market that are there.
Interesting. I like that thought too. That makes sense. Absolutely. So here's my thought on when you're asked this question to kind of turn the tables a little bit or make a mindset shift happen, not just for your customer, but first for your own self. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's say that you're in the business, and I actually have a friend, and she has a very popular brand that's in the business of making mattresses, and they're called Dream mattresses, right? So let's say if you're selling mattresses in the market, one way of saying it is that we sell mattresses. Our mattresses are the best mattresses in the world. We count amongst the top 10 mattress makers in the world, so on and so forth. Another way of doing it, and to find that shift, is what I'm hoping is where we get started today. I think when you say we sell mattresses, it does not really cut it. But if you say that we sell sound sleep, is when it cuts it. It's a subtle shift, but a very critical shift. So when somebody tells me that we help you enhance your career opportunities, rather than saying that we are a recruitment firm, for me that is more meaningful. When somebody tells me that you're a leader and we ensure that you become a thought leader, so that not just the stakeholders who already know you, but many that yet do not hear your voice are able to hear your voice, we help you build your brand like that. So what we make you do, what we give to you rather than what we do, is I think the shift that we're talking about when we're talking about don't sell. That's number one. And by the way, it takes a bit to find out that sweet spot which works the best for you. So this is one example. Here's another one which is more personal. And like I said, if you're talking about a little shift in the mindset, in that paradigm, in that attitude, here's how I look at what I do. One way of saying it is that we provide corporate training and coaching services. Another way of saying it is our purpose is to partner our clients in identifying and achieving their purpose. You see the shift that I'm talking about? And I really think that we should find the shift for our own elevator pitches as well. One, it is incredible that a lot of the founders that I meet today haven't really yet thought of what their elevator pitch is going to be. So I would say that right at the beginning, here are two takeaways to think about. One, do I have a solid elevator pitch, a two-line introduction, which really summarizes what my brand is, what my vision is, what my passion is? One. And second, is it talking about what we do, or is it talking about what we enable you to do better, right? So the shift from me to you is the shift that essentially I'm talking about. Make sense, folks? Yeah? Okay, taking this one step forward, so when we are saying selling is not the way to do it, don't sell is the way to do it, for me, it is this. Over the years of talking to my own customers and also talking to customers of my customers, I've realized that the one thing that truly makes a customer want to buy is when they feel empowered. So each time you're able to empower your customer, you're selling without selling. So when you say, I want to sell to you, you are in power. But the moment you make them want to buy, they are in power. So don't sell for me is not that you're not selling, but you're doing it in a way that they want to buy rather than you having to sell, right? So sell is the me first way of doing it. Don't sell as the customer first way of doing it. Sell is the push way of doing it. Don't sell as the pull way of doing it. And I'm not going to go back to my first slide, but I'm just throwing some names out here to which have batch value. So we do a bunch of work with clients like Accenture, like I said, Cognizant, PwC, Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Volvo. All of these are Amazon. All of these are global big names. 99% of them are clients who called us for the first time. We did not sell to them, they came to us. 99% of them. Up until a year and a half ago, we did not have any outgoing calls on our office phones. It was only incoming calls, right? Now, the point is, how does one enable that to happen for your businesses? It could be potential investors, it could be potential customers, it could be potential employees, it could be potential partners. But how do you get to a situation where you get the calls, where you get the referrals, is exactly what we are hoping to be able to talk about and achieve, at least in terms of blueprint today. Yeah. Okay. So having said that, folks, idea is how do you make that pull happen? And here's something right at the beginning for you to consider. And I've actually been saying this even before social media became a thing. All right. Because if you look at it, and I'm going to give you a few examples, there are some companies who are playing this game. Game may be not the right word for it though, but we're working with this mindset or with this spirit from much before social media ever became a thing. So I've been saying for years now that don't build a team, don't build a company. Don't build a team, don't build a company. If there's something that you want to be able to do, build a tribe and build a community. So that shift from team to tribe and from company to community. Like I said, community building has become quite a thing now, but there are companies who've been doing it for a long time. And of course, when I'm saying team to tribe, I'm talking about internal stakeholders, I'm talking about employees, I'm talking about partners, and when I'm talking about external stakeholders, I'm talking about the community. Decathlon as a brand may not be the sexiest brand, may not be luxury. But tell me, what is unique and peculiar about Decathlon when it becomes an example for team to tribe? Why is Decathlon a fantastic example of team to tribe? Yeah, so then that's more for the community. But for the employee, why is Decathlon a fantastic example of not building a team, but building a tribe?
What's their passion that they run?
Fantastic. Sports is a passion that they run to. But to what effect and to what extent? How many of you have ever shopped at Decathlon? See quite a few hands going up. Now, like I said, maybe Nike is the shoe of your preference when you're going running, but then there are still quite a few categories of sport which are not available with the Nikes of the world, are only available with Decathlon. It's as diversified as it gets, right? Now, if you were to go to Decathlon to buy a running shoe, for example, don't be surprised, and this may have happened with you as well, where the person who is giving you the information on the shoe would tell you, or ask you rather, when do you run, morning or evening? So if I say evening, they'd also ask me, do you run indoor, on a treadmill, on a fabricated turf, or on soft surface? They would also ask you if you already know that the intonation of your toe is more to the left or the right. And then you would ask them, why are you asking me these questions? And this person, chances are, will tell you, I am an athlete. I did represent India at the Nationals last year. I've also played at the Asiad Games. And I also happen to work with Decathlon. So number one, anybody you meet on the shop floor is not just anybody, is 101% somebody who themselves are a sports person, or at the very least are passionate about the sport that they are selling to you, right? So you've made one shift happen from team to tribe. But where the problem occurs, because there are a lot of people I meet who say, I've been able to do this with my brand as well. I only get people on board who are passionate. But where the big shift happens, and this is my example for it, and you can look this up, and that's why I'm throwing names here. There's a gentleman called Jitendra Singh. Decathlon in India is headquartered in Bangalore. Jitendra in 2012, 2013 used to be the head of marketing for Audi for the southern region, headquartered in Bangalore. He gets a call one day from somebody at Decathlon saying that we are looking at senior vice president marketing for one of our segments and we'd like you to interview for it. Jitendra goes through some 5 rounds of interviews. For the final round of interview, he got an email saying that tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., show up at the Bangalore Parade Ground. And some of you, if you're familiar with Bangalore, you would know that the Bangalore Parade Ground is literally Parade Karadi, right? It was like huge, all right? And he's asked to come kitted for sports. That's all he's told. Now, when he reaches the Bangalore Parade Ground at 6 a.m., it's raining a little. He meets Pia. Pia was the first country manager for Decathlon in India. And Pia is doing warm-ups, literally doing warm-ups. And he asks Jimmy, Jitendra, popularly called Jimmy, he said, Jimmy, why don't you start warming up too? So Jimmy is like, okay. He starts warming up too. And very nonchalant, after the warm-up, Pia starts running. And he asks Jimmy, let's go. So Jimmy also starts running. His final interview for this position happened over an 8-kilometer run. 8-kilometer run. All right. So their point is, you could be Tis Markhan, Marathi, Bahubali, dude in whatever you do. But along with that, if you're not passionate about sports, fitness, and outdoors, then you cannot work with Decathlon. So team to tribe to that level. We do a lot of offsites for our clients. Right? We take them to fancy destinations. One kind of client says that bus Mercedes Benz ki honi chahiye. Volvo bhi nahi. We want a Mercedes bus. Decathlon says we'll only go to places where we can either go running or we can go cycling. So they go to Coorg on a bicycle. They go to Mysore on a bicycle. So you're building a team which is so centered to one purpose, which is sports for all and all for sports, or sports, outdoors, and fitness, that they're speaking, breathing absolutely the same passion and the same spirit. And that's when you go from team to tribe. So if you were to ask me, Viraj, what does this mean for me? What it means for us really is that if you've got even one more person working with you, make sure is that person who's as passionate about what you're building as you are, because you're not going to be able to sell all the time. And in fact, you shouldn't be selling all the time. But whoever is representing you in the market should be as passionate about that category and as passionate about that brand as possible. That's when you can say, hey, don't sell, because somebody else is doing it for you. So every person who comes on board should come with that spirit. Now, when I say company to community, any idea why Lego is a fantastic example of that?
Adults are now like buying Lego kits, submitting ideas. They're sort of actually building kits from outside.
Fantastic. You're hitting the right buttons.
My husband is one of those.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Lego in the late 80s and the early 90s was growing like this and suddenly nosedives. Right? From a super profitable company, they started generating losses of the highest order. And they realized that kids don't want to play with Lego anymore. Late 80s, early 90s, video games were just coming into the scene, right? Kids had other avenues. One generation before that, which is the generation that I grew up in, you're right, we played with building blocks. It was a thing, right? The generation right after was not playing with building blocks anymore. And Lego nosedive. Do remember that this is all happening pre-social media. So they're not in direct touch with their community on a daily basis, right? Their communities are wherever they are. But they know that there are a lot of die-hard Lego fans in the previous generation who are now maybe closet buyers. So they want to buy a Lego set, not because the child is excited about the Lego set, but they themselves are excited about the idea or that nostalgia of building blocks with their children like their parents did with them, right? Knut Starp, and you should look up this guy, fantastic guy. Knut Starp is the guy who became the first managing director of Lego as a group who did not come from the family. Up until the time when he became MD, all people who had ever headed Lego were from the family. He was the first external guy who came on board. I'm not going to go into the story of how he ended up being there. But the first two things he did when he came on board, like you rightly said, ma'am, he involved the customer in deciding what is it that we should produce. So he said, we are making too much. We are making Barbie sets, we are making guns, we are doing this, we are doing that. But let the customer tell us what they want to buy. So their R&D team, their research team, the innovation team, they ran a competition to say that we are revamping this team, and the 10 people who are going to head a R&D new product launch are all going to be people who participate in a contest, tell us what their ideas are, and we're going to get them on board. So they actually got the fans of Lego to become their employees. Company to community. It's not you always who's giving solutions to your customer. Very often your customer is going to give you the solution if you allow them to, right? Another smart thing that they did, they said, hey, listen, let's get progressive. Let's do collaborations. So they said hashtag collabs much before it became a thing. So that's tied up with Star Wars on one hand. They tied up with Toy Story on the other hand. They tied up with, so they said, what are the kids doing? Kids are watching screens. So let's go into the screens. So they collaborated with Disney, Electronic Arts, Marvel Studios, and they ensured that the new generation of children who may not play with Lego toys get introduced to Lego for the first time in the online community. So who is your customer then? Is your customer then Disney? Or is your customer then that child who for the first time gets introduced to Lego on Disney? Right? So essentially what I'm trying to say is that when we are thinking building community, we are often a time thinking build community with customer. But what about that enabler? What about that stakeholder who is not directly your customer but has more access to your customer than you do? So for me, building community is hashtag collabs, right? So whatever you say about external stakeholders, there's got to be that one person who's relevant to your business, has direct access to your customer, and can become your brand endorser. I've often seen in my business that when we pick up the phone, like I said, in the last year and a half, we finally started doing outgoing calls. When we pick up the phone and call, versus when somebody comes to us referred from somebody else, chances of us converting somebody who's coming referred is at least 6 times, not even 4 times, 6 times higher than our outgoing calls. So enable that community for you is one way of ensuring that you don't sell. Make sense? I'd like to pause here for a second and ask you, how many of you are consciously building a community which enables this phenomena for you? 1, your customers giving you ideas. 2, influencers or endorsers for your brand. How many of us are building those communities? So if you look around you, you'll see there are 3, 4 hands that have gone up, 4.5 hands that have gone up. But I'm saying that one of the most important ways of building any business today is your power to be able to build a community where they are making it happen for you. They are your brand ambassadors. They are your ideators. And like I said, these are examples of brands that enabled it in times when social media wasn't there. In the times of social and digital, doing this is easier. But because there's so much of it already happening, you got to be able to stand out. And that's where we are going next. So far, so good, folks? Please.
From your experience standpoint, which of these exercises is tougher to do? Because when I think of the way in which we work and I function, I find the right one easier to do, which is building the collab, maybe the access to information, the noise is more
Right.
these times. and maybe because of that, people drift away.
Right.
But I think the past would have had its own set of challenges.
Right.
So yeah, any thoughts from your side?
So one, I'm absolutely with you when you say that the tougher one actually is not to get the customer, but the right employee to service that customer, right? So I'm with you that building a community possibly is easier than building a tribe. But again, I think a mindset shift there has helped us. So I'm talking from personal experience. I stopped looking at employees as a long-term phenomena. I've stopped looking at employees as a long-term phenomena. Yeah, so I'm not looking at longevity at all. But I'm looking at aligning purposes for sure. Which means that, and that's what we're doing for a lot of a big corporate as well. We are saying that terms of engagement have changed. They're not changing. They have changed. So the sooner you can make peace with that, the better it is. Gen Z is not going to look at their durability or longevity with you as the previous generations did. They are going to do multiple things. My thought is that so long as you're able to make them converts in whatever time they spend with you, and after that they're going, I look forward to them going. I don't have to give them the next appraisal. I don't have to give them the next whatever jump that they wanted in life. Let them go and get it anywhere in the world that they want, so long as while they go out there they still shine a light on us, right? So I'm saying whatever little time you have, uh, an old cliched phrase, catch them young, watch them grow. Yes, so I'm saying that I'm very happy with the idea of getting a lot of interns on board, and we onboard about 15 to 20 interns. I know that in the long term, they may not want to work with us. They may want to work in the L&D team or the corporate training team with a big corporate. But the time they spend with us, and when they go to that big corporate, a lot of times the referrals actually come from them. Or a lot of times they become our clients when they become senior manager enough to make those decisions. So my thought only is that often a time we are looking at how do we make sure that our best resources stay with us for a longer period of time? Or are they not so passionate as I thought they are because I spend so much of time and effort into grooming them, and just when they're ready to start firing, they're gone. I'm saying that that's going to happen. Make peace with it. It has very little to do with you. It is more to do with how their minds are wired, right? So, but make sure that whatever little time you have with them, you're able to deliver your magic and convert them as ambassadors. Yeah.
And we're just getting you a mic, Viraj. Although, can everyone hear? We apologize. We were not aware of this, so apologize for any disturbance.
Noise is what we're surrounded by all the time, right? But yeah, honestly, is the audibility all right for everybody? Fantastic. Okay. So making this move one step forward, and here's another question that I have for you. How would you define your business? Is it B2C? Is it B2B? Is it B2B2C? Is it D2C? How would you define your business? B2C? B2C. B2?
B2C or even
B2C.
D2C.
Or D2C. B2C and B2B as well.
One is B2B, one is B2C.
So one is B2B and one. Kudos. Whoever is enabling that for yourselves, kudos. Now here I throw in another cliche, and not that you haven't heard of it, but that's the reminder. And that's key to the don't sell philosophy. Also, it's key to the fact that when you're talking about building a tribe or when you're building a community, it happens one person at a time. You convert one person at a time. So whatever your business is and however you define it, B2B, B2C, do remember that before anything else, it is edge to edge. Human to human, heart to heart, but it is one-on-one. So Cognizant, we were running this whole organization-wide campaign, and back then there were 500,000 people. And they said, we want something which goes from many to many. So virality of your idea means it goes from many to many, right? But they said it and we used it for the first time and we loved it. While it goes from many to many, don't forget doing the one-on-one, edge to edge as well. So the 10,000 people community, for example, that I have on LinkedIn, out of that maybe about 4,000 to 5,000 people are people who are directly linked with the people business, with the talent business, with the training business. And with these 4,000, 5,000 people, within that, there are possibly 100 of them who I know wherever they go, they're going to endorse us, they're going to come back to us. So are you building that equation one-on-one? Potential investor, potential customer, potential endorser. I think for me, that's the real big one. When I see somebody's thriving community on LinkedIn or Instagram, my only instant question to them is how many of them truly are not just engaged with you, but are direct ROI for you?
But would you do this personally yourself, or would you have a team?
Both. Both.
Because it becomes difficult.
Oh, 100%.
So many people want to know.
100%. And I'm going to give you a little exercise on that just in a few minutes. But good question. I'd say that you'll have to do both. Till the time you know that you've built a tribe which is strong enough to be doing the community building on your behalf, right? Up until that point, it's a good idea to do it on your own. And actually, once, and that's something which I ask a lot of leaders, I say that your bandwidth, and do this exercise sometime if you haven't done it. I'm not going to do it with you today for the paucity of time, but to answer that question, I'm saying that in the 10 things that you to do for your business, according to me, amongst the most important actually is that H to H. So try and make sure that you delegate a lot of whatever else you're doing so that you make actually that much more time for H to H. The quality and the audience of your H to H might change when you change those gears, but what you can do as far as magic is concerned, chances are somebody else can maybe not match up to that, right? So a lot of people think freeing up bandwidth is to say, hey, listen, now whatever connections we're doing in the world, whatever sales we are doing, you do it while I'm going to think about how do I scale. I'm saying the scaling actually to me is an outcome of the edge to edge that you're able to build, especially in today's day and age, right? And like I said, I'm gonna come to that. Where should you spend your edge to edge bandwidth?
The only question I have is when you're doing all the communication there yourself, then it becomes very difficult to sometimes concentrate on business as well.
That's exactly what her question was, right? So number one. Is it a double-edged sword? Of course it is. I'm saying though, and that's where the exercise that I'm not going to do with you, but I'm parking that as a question for you. I call it the 3-box philosophy. So I'm saying that all of us have bandwidth, whatever our bandwidth is, divided into 3 boxes. Box number 1 is personal. Box number 2 is functional. Box number 3 is strategic. So entrepreneurs, as founders, as leaders, our total bandwidth in life is divided into these 3 boxes. Personal would be stuff that you just have to do to survive. You have to eat, you have to shower, you have to go to office. When I say have to, I mean, whatever the drive time is, how you're spending it, utilizing is a different story, but there are just certain things that you just have to do. You have to spend time with family, you have to take vacations, you have to socialize. Not all of it is existential, a lot of it is stuff that also feeds your soul, but that's all in the personal box. Functional box is the OTPs that your team is sending to you constantly, and you have to tell them that this is what needs to be done, right? Now, if you're somebody who's struggling with the OTP nonsense, yeah, you know what I mean. It's frustrating, right? I see a lot of resonance to that. Yeah. So all of that is in this second box, functional box, which is not strategic.
I am extremely sorry.
That's all right. OTP, thank you. So the second box where you're doing the OTPs and you're doing that stuff for your business, which you just have to do, necessary evils. You have to set up a team, you have to train them, you have to recruit them, you have to work with a recruitment agency, you have to work with a social media agency, all of that. The stuff that you're doing, not stuff you're enabling, not stuff that you're thinking, not stuff that is vision, but stuff that you have to do. That's all in the functional box. Strategic box is what I call not the delivery box, but the development box, where you're answering questions like, how do I upskill? What upskilling do I require? How do I ensure that my vision reaches more number of people? How do I ensure that I'm able to open a new market? How do I ensure I'm able to go to a new location? So a lot of the how-oriented, progressive, next-level stuff is in the strategic box. When I talk to most leaders and I say that do this one simple exercise, that in the first 2 boxes, what are the stuff that you're doing that you'd much rather not do? A good 60% of the stuff sits there. So I'm saying that it's actually, the question is, how do I do H to H with so much going on in my life? I'm saying, in fact, do twice the amount of H to H you're doing, get rid of the other stuff in your life that you're continuing to do, which you shouldn't do. So there's a mechanism which is called TADIT, template, automate, delegate. So when you start templating your first two boxes to see what's the recurring stuff that you're doing, which is what I call transactional stuff. So you color code it. Green is transformational stuff that I am spending time at Harvard Business School in my personal box this month because that's going to transform the way I think. That's a big green. But I am still following up either on Dunzo or on Blinkit or on Zepto. That's transactional stuff. Now, that's stuff which you have to find a way either to automate or to delegate. So, what to automate, what to delegate is the transactional so that you can focus more on the transformational. So, I'm saying that's a different battle. Don't question the fact, if you were to ask me, don't question the fact that how do I do more edge to edge? Question, what can I stop doing to spend more time on edge to edge? So that battle is slightly different. Happy to fight it with you. For me, that comes within the realm of personal effectiveness. And if you haven't done this yet, it may be a really good idea for you. And, if you have these strategic minus ones who work with you very closely to undergo a personal effectiveness coaching or a workshop. It's an eye opener. I did it for myself and it works brilliantly. When you start looking at the blind spots that you're missing, often a time those blind spots are just stuff that we're doing out of habit, which we can stop doing today, but we're just continuing to do them because we are not even noticing them as roadblocks, so to speak. So that's my thought there. Edge to edge should be done. You should do more of it, but maybe you'd like to channelize it, and that's where I'm headed next, right? So I'm saying that don't sell means team to tribe, means company to community. Also, we've said it means edge to edge. But like the both of you are saying, how do you really make this edge to edge happen with the limited bandwidth that we have? And here's how I look at it. I say, remember this one acronym called PACK. You got to pack a punch, so remember it like that, PACK. If you do these three things, I think you're able to get the maximum benefit out of edge to edge. So for me, PACK, the first part, is something called the power circle. And that's the answer to your question right there. That when you are thinking that with the limited time I have, how should I channelize it to doing relevant edge to edge, to doing really potent edge to edge, doing edge to edge that's going to enable 10x. Then start with first answering this question for yourself. Who is part of my power circle? What is a power circle? Anybody?
Network that I'm surrounded with.
Fantastic. Like I said, my LinkedIn network, 10,000 people, but not all of them power circles. So not just your network. Who within your network then is power circle? People who refer you, that's one part of it. People who have impact and influence. People who empower you. People who will sell for you. People who get the work done, sure. Some of them could be employees, partners, vendors as well. The way I define a power circle is, the number one, it should be a minimum of 10 people. It could go up to maybe 20, it could even be 25. But you should definitely have those 10 people in your network who will 101% go out of their way to stand up for you when required. So the way I see it is, they could be a customer. Then, so when you're saying within my customer, who's my power network, who's my power circle, is that customer who will never work with your competitor, will always work only with you. If you're a recruitment firm, they could be working with Airtel today, but tomorrow when they move to Vodafone, at Vodafone, they will bring you in as a vendor. That customer then can come into your power circle, right? It's that employee of yours who you know is going to create not ripples but waves out there and swears by you, and tomorrow, even if it does not stay with you, is always going to be your brand ambassador. That person then becomes part of your power circle. It's that vendor who is giving you every year enough and more referrals with whatever clients that they work with, right? It's that investor who you know tomorrow when you want to scale And when you're doing the friends and family round, is 101% going to put in money into your business in that friends and family round. Is going to be a seed investor. And if you don't have one of these, ideally you should have 3 of these in your network, but you should definitely have one, and that one person should definitely be the power circle. It has to be that one person in media who would get you the right coverage at the right time, not because just that they trust you. They know that if they were to write about you, they were to profile you, or they were to call you for an interview on their television channel, you would deliver the goods. But they are already endorsers of yours. So you need this one person in media as well, right? You need a friend who's going to be your friend, philosopher, and guide, who will give you unbiased. They may not get you the money, but they are the ones who will show you the true face, will show you the mirror when it is required, and so on and so forth, fellow alumni, so on and so forth, and various stakeholders. But I'm saying that when you do your list tonight, if you haven't done this ever, first and foremost, see, do you have 10 such assets who single-handedly, when they come together, will help you grow 4x or not? So if you were to ask me, where should you spend your H2H bandwidth? I'm saying spend your H2H bandwidth in developing your power circle. So this year onwards, Gautam is my partner, Gautam and I have decided that we are going to ride individual targets of our own. In my benefit, I've been doing this for 14 years. Unfortunately for Gautam, he's only started doing this 4 years ago. So when he has to, when that at the end of the quarter, he's falling a little short of his target, he's scratching his brain as to how I do this. When I'm falling short of my target, I don't call a new customer, I call an existing customer. And I said, this month's target, you anyways were to, pay us an advance for the next quarter, do it in this quarter. And that one person in the power circle will say, yeah, sure, go ahead. काम तो करना ही है, अगले quarter में होने वाला है. And invariably, this is the owner who's also over a period of time becomes somebody that I can sit down and have a drink with, is somebody I've gone for treks with, who is a client, but more than that is also a friend and a trusted accomplice in a lot of things I do. A lot of my tribe today are people who actually were first part of the community. And when, as the HR head, now they are on the verge of retiring, they said, do you think I can also become a coach? And I'll make sure you become a coach. Yeah. So making that transition happen from the community to the tribe is also investing in that power circle. But I think the power circle, the way it works often, and which is again something which is more a philosophy, but it works wonders. I have people sitting in my power circle to who for the first few years I only gave, asked once after many years of giving, and they were more than obliged, more than happy to return the favor. Yeah. So it's the giver mindset. If you were to ask me, Gary V, anybody? Are you aware of this name, Gary V? Yeah. So Gary V says a lot of things and says them too quickly and too fast in a language which I think is rather crass. But the guru of the street, one thing he said which resonated with me. He said, you want something from somebody? First give, 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 and then ask. So where should we be spending our bandwidth on H2H? I truly believe in cultivating a power circle where to start with maybe you're only giving, but knowing fully well that here is a person who should be invested into, not because they will give something back to you, but you actually like spending time with them, you actually like working with them, you actually think they're great human beings, you actually think we can be great friends if nothing else. So cultivate a power circle of that nature. Believe you me, large consulting firms, large law firms, very interesting. I met with somebody while we were waiting to get started. I went to the terrace and I bumped into somebody who runs a rather large law firm. They're in the event next door. And him and I got talking, and he says it's been a few years since we worked together because I worked with him once 12 years ago at Amarchand Mangaldas. interesting that when the two of us were having a conversation, Burgess, who's also here, who happens to be his friend, walked in and said, "Why aren't you guys working together?" Now, Burgess is somebody who I have never worked with. But if I was to count to 10 people, Burgess is a partner with ShareChat. He may be listening to me standing on the other side, right? So Burgess said, why don't you two of you work together? I know Viraj has done a bunch of work with Amachal Mangal Das. Now, Burgess, the only investment I've made with him ever is that we're good friends. And when this guy said, "Oh, I know, Viraj and I worked together 10, 12 years ago," Burgess said, "No, you note down his number, you call him tomorrow." So for me, it's when I say edge to edge, I actually mean truly, is there a heart to heart equation out there where you're investing in it not because there's something that's going to come in return, but you're sure when you want, the return will also happen. So build that power circle if you're not doing it already. All right. So that's the question to ask yourself. How many people are there in my power circle today? And when you do this exercise at home, somewhere also ask yourself as a CTA, how can I invest more in cultivating, identifying and cultivating a power circle? And when you say, how can I cultivate my power circle? That takes me to the A of pack, right? So we said pack. Sorry. So I'm saying for me, the call to action, the CTA of whatever we've spoken about in the last 15 minutes around the power circle is that if you can identify 10 people at least in your power circle, fantastic. But if you can't, then now's the time to first identify those 10. You may not already have strong equations with them. Now's a good time to start cultivating strong relationships there. Yeah. So how can I cultivate my power circle? And that, like I said, leads me to the A of it all, which is ambassadorship. Yeah. Would you agree that all of you are ambassadors of your own brands? Yeah. For me, by the way, Abha, you're a fantastic ambassador of your brand, right? And I think that you're building a very strong team of ambassadors around you also. One person that I think did a fantastic job of it, not once but twice. Because see, once you can say, oh, she had partners, so she was able to do it well. But when she did it for the second time, you cannot take the credit away from her. Is the lady here. Who's she? Neither Ivanka nor Sarah. Say it, yeah, go for it. She's the founder of Bumble, Whitney Wolf, right? Now, long story short, but she was the co-founder of Tinder and was also the principal founder of Bumble. At Tinder, community building was her central responsibility. As one of the three partners, that was her primary focus, right? At Bumble, so she was asked to leave Tinder, or she left, let's say, under controversial circumstances. But a lot of people said that, she was not what made Tinder. Tinder happened. But she said, "I'm going to prove you wrong. I'll create a Bumble." And not only did she create a Bumble, but she actually created a dating site which most women said can be trusted more than Tinder. Because while Tinder over a period of time became about random hookups, she heard her customer and her own experiences. She said that I need to build something where men are screened first. So the fact that you part of that network, if you can upload your dating profile, is once a screening has already happened. And then she came up with like 6 other things that she did to ensure that the woman is empowered. There are 3 big takeaways for me from her story. Takeaway number 1 is that she not only had she had a great purpose. She did something where it was very clear why she is building a Bumble when a Tinder already existed. Second, she had the presence that 101% matched the purpose and the brand she was building. And I'm, of course, going to go two lines into each one of these things, but I'm just putting it out there. Third, a lot of people have the purpose, but they don't know how to present their purpose. One, do you have a purpose which is strong? Second, when you're building that whole edge to edge and that community and that tribe, not only do you have that purpose, but you're able to communicate that purpose strongly. And for me, that really is where a lot of the thought leadership bit, a lot of the personal profiling bit, and everything comes in. But if I was to go one step into these, I'm saying purpose for me means your passion, your purpose, your vision. Have you articulated it down to pat that when you tell somebody about your passion or your purpose or your vision, they truly are moved by it? What is your why? Now, if you're thinking that in the sales workshop, which is called Don't Sell, why are we talking marketing? Here's my whole point for it, that if you truly want to be able to enable that sale to happen, which is not happening for a transactional reason, but is happening for a transformational reason, then nobody invested into Bumble because they thought that it is going to grow 10x in the first year. Everybody who invested into Bumble invested in it because they were so moved by the purpose of this one woman that they said, I have to invest in this. Now, we are building a community which is going to be, say, a dating site or a dating solution for women, which is going to be truly safe. That's the purpose. So very well thought of, very well crafted. Find it and articulate it. Second, of course, is law. When we are talking about personal brand, tell me, what is law? It's an acronym in the sense of the personal brand. Because see, after this, we are going to go from presence to presentation. I'm saying in order for your presentation to work for you, you need a strong narrative and you need strong law. And I'm saying Whitney Wolf had both of these sorted very well. Strong narrative and strong law. So in that context, what do you think this acronym LAW stands for? To a certain extent, yes. It is to do with charisma. It is to do with, what is another good word for it? My vocabulary sometimes. Gravitas, charisma, gravitas. In that context, what do you think law stands for?
Dying of curiosity now.
As simple as this. I call it looks, actions, words. Looks, actions, words. And I truly believe that a lot of what people perceive your brand to be is basis your presence. Gandhi, father of the nation, was a presence which started with law. What do I mean by it? I'm saying that, look at the positioning that this man thought of. He said, before me, there have been a lot of freedom fighters who've been able to get some momentum, but they've never been able to get the entire country together. Nehru, too suave and too polished. Yeah. Bhagat Singh, too violent. Netaji, too violent. One, he said, I know that we are a non-violent country. When you tell people who are not coming out of their homes that tum mujhe khoon do, main tumhe azadi dunga, average Indian says, nahi dunga. Yeah, let's just call it nahi dunga. All right. So nobody wants to give their blood. So he, number one, said non-violent movement. A lot of Indians said, oh, ye main kar sakta hu. So kya karna padega? Dandi march. So all I need to do is walk, and that's going to get us freedom. I'll come out of the house. Second, he realized, like I said, in case of Nehru, in case of a lot of other freedom fighters, when you wear a suit, all polished, suave, and you stand in front of the average Indian back then and say, "Mai tumhe azadi dilayega." Chancellor, Indian would say, "Tu kya dilayega? You don't even know what my problem is. I can see that you don't know what my problem is." Right? So M.K. Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi 1.0 had to become father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi 2.0, and a large part of that started with just changing packaging. When that suit went off and when that khadi came on, and then when he stood in front of the average Indian and said, "Main tumhe azadi dilaunga," they say he looks like us. He looks impoverished. He looks like he does not have too much money. He may actually know what our problems are. So for me, what your brand stands for, what its purpose is, and how your presence is talking for you even before you start talking. We're not going to go into the details of actions and words today, but I'm saying that it's interesting when I'm doing this whole executive presence piece with a lot of the leaders. I ask them that in your first impression to the world, do you think you come across as approachable, or do you have a demeanor? Actions is, by the way, body language, as simply put. Or is your demeanor perceived as maybe you're defensive, you're blocked, you don't want to talk to anybody? You say, no, 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 I'm very warm. I think I'm an extrovert. I said, look at your video recording. Yeah. I said, where the heck is that smile? I said, with that seriousness, when you ask me the question you ask, no, you're not approachable. And sometimes I get this response that when I was delivering my elevator pitch, or when I was delivering my presentation to the client, or when I was giving my TED talk, I thought I was smiling. A lot of people have a big challenge projecting the smile outward. Inwardly, they're smiling. Like my dad. Like, Dad, do you not like the idea of doing this restaurant this evening? Like, no, great idea. It was a great idea. Where is that smile? I was like, oh, I did not smile. So a lot of people are just not expressive. I truly believe that and again, value systems, right? Some of us could have a value system where you say, hey, listen, my brand and my work will speak for me. But I'm saying that that's actually not very edge to edge. The first rule of emotional intelligence, there are 4 quadrants there. The first rule of emotional intelligence is that you are playing to the crowd, you are playing to the galleries. So listen to what their feedback is, because one part of your brand is who you are, another part of it is how you're perceived. And greater the alignment of the two, greater the overlap of the two sides, the more potent your brand becomes. So you've got to be able to factor in the feedback of your stakeholders to say, hey, this is what we believe it would be. So if I'm a partner of a law firm, and if I walk in shorts and a polo shirt, it does not mean that I'm less of a lawyer. But the fact is that you don't expect the partner of a big law firm to walk in khakis or in chinos and a polo shirt. You just expect to see them in a suit, and that's part of your presence. And then when you stand up and say, by the way, I run a law firm which has got 20, trilegal lawyers who left trilegal and worked with me, you're believable. In shorts and chinos, chances are that they may still I think thoda fake raha hai. Right? So I'm saying that I think what Whitney Wolf was able to do very well is stitch together the purpose and the presence, well-crafted, well-designed presence, and it's amazing. You Google Whitney Wolf, and that's part of your presence. There's never a time when she's not wearing one of 2 things. Go ahead. Yellow, because that's Bumble. Invariably, you'll see some yellow. And 2, if she's not wearing yellow, like by the way, my previous picture, correct. So wearing a suit, no yellow there, but you know that the gray t-shirt under is swag, right? So even your merch and your swag speaks a lot for you. And that's really the whole idea, that you are your brand, make it part of your presence in as many different ways as you possibly can. And that definitely makes the edge to edge happen. I love people who, so by the way, don't sell. So since here the idea was, more a conversation, more a dialogue, so I wouldn't do it. But otherwise, an open brackets button is something which is just part and parcel of my suit all the way through, all right? So if I'm at any conference where I'm speaking or I'm audience, that open brackets button goes with me everywhere. So if you want others to be proud of your brand and to endorse it, you may want to find subtle ways of doing it yourself too. And for me, when that stitches together, a lot of people tell me this, by the way, they're like, I'm doing all of what you're saying, Viraj, but I don't think it works. And that's what I remind them. It works 100 on 100 if you're actually doing all that needs to be done. So this whole piece stitches together only when all 3 of these things actually come together. You actually have to question that, have I articulated my purpose well enough? When I give that elevator pitch, does that purpose stand out or not? have I been able to create a presence for myself, a packaging for myself, which resonates with the stakeholders the way I want it to resonate? And third, then am I communicating it well enough? And when I say communicating it well enough, that's where comes in the third part of it, which is communication content, which is your elevator pitch, which is your narrative, which is your social media, which is your content, so on and so forth. A lot of us, by the way, also say that this is not me. I don't like to put myself out there. So I say, well, if you don't like it, it unfortunately yet has become a necessary evil. You may want to do less of it, but to say that I don't want to do it at all is not how it works anymore. I truly believe Bumble became the brand that it became because Whitney Wolf was out there telling her story, her narrative, her purpose on various stages and various forums, including the content that was going up on social media and the PR that was happening around it. I do hear this still very vociferously, not my value system. I said, well, if you don't want to be the ambassador of your brand, find somebody who will be. But unless there's a human face to a brand anymore, it does not work. Because while you may want to go many to many, it's the first 10 people in your power circle who still have to promote you. And they don't promote the business, they don't promote the brand, they don't promote the organization, they promote the human. So that human to human is extremely important. And I think this is how it stitches together. All right, folks. So here's my last bit. I started with this. I said, shift the narrative from what you do to what you enable for your customer, right? And I'm saying that in the pack part of it, that's your final element, customer first. There is no H to H unless the customer comes first, right? And in case of customer, by the way, just one more thing to keep in mind. Every time you're pitching, every time when you're in a meeting, could be with an investor, could be with a potential customer, I think your ability to be able to sense an opportunity for them, not for you, but for them, where either there is a pain that you've been able to identify that you can solve for, or there's a potential gain that you've been able to identify to solve for. That's where the magic truly happens. It's not, often the time it's not about your pricing, it's not about your product, it's not about your brand. It just boils down to, simple example, the L&D head at a big training company in the larger scheme of things is reportable to the CHRO of that company. Often a time when I see a hesitation in the mind of the L&D head, especially with clients that we're working with for the first time, I know that what I'm telling them is not the pitch for them. I'm giving them the pitch to get the approval from their bosses, right? So the opportunity there, the insecurity there, often a time of the Viraj, we've never worked with you before, the kind of prices that you're asking for, I know I'll not get a sanction on it. Now, what I know when she or he says that I'm not going to get a sanction on it, they essentially mean that I have to go convince my boss, right? So for me to give them a pitch, not to convince them, but to actually, for them to be able to convince their bosses that their prices are what they are because is my opportunity to have catered to a opportunity for her to gain because I know, or for him to gain, because I know that this is the way they pitch it, they're actually going to win brownie points for it rather than flack for it. Yeah. So the whole pain and gain for me boils down to this. Here's a quick question, a quick exercise, and I'd like you to kind of participate in this. We're talking about pitching, we're talking about customer first. Let's say that all of us here, and that's why you're free to ask this question, you are a travel agency. You run boutique, very customized vacationing solutions for your clients. I'm a potential customer who's walked up to you, and in a 5, 7, 8 minute conversation, you got to be able to figure out what my pain and gain opportunities are and pitch me a solution. So here I am. I want to go for a vacation and I want you to enable that for me. Questions? Go for it.
Why do you want to go on vacation?
So it's been a while since the family holiday together. While I like to trek, and I recently this year went for a trek. The wife, by the way, does some of her own solo travel as well. But we wanted to ensure that children, all of us, go for a vacation together. So that's the primary motive this time, for it to be a family vacation. Go for it.
I would probably ask about your favorite color. Hear me out. Okay? I would ask
Nice.
your favorite color. And maybe, I mean, since I'm a travel agency, I would know what color is prevalent in whichever country or city, whatever. We'll figure that out.
So, by the way, let's do this actively, not in third party. So, go for it.
What's your favorite color?
I have to say it oscillates somewhere between a navy blue and a yellow.
I would probably then suggest somewhere in the Mediterranean.
So, you're saying that your suggestion is that I should travel to the Mediterranean?
Yes, probably.
So, okay, here's a quick caveat that I'd want to put in there. While I would love to go to the Mediterranean, but since the kids are going along as well, and one of them not a very good traveler when it comes to air, right? He just gets too anxious every time he flies. So I'd much rather this time around we do something where air travel is not involved.
What sort of weather do you like?
I'm a big fan of the mountains. The wife is a big fan of the beaches. And the kids, they just want water wherever they are. So long as they get the water, they are fine. So more than the weather, I think water is definitely of value.
When was the last holiday that you took?
So we, by the way, recently, when I say recently, I mean last year, the big one that we did, we drove down all the way from Delhi to Goa and the kids loved it.
So that's a road trip that you
A road trip, yes, yes.
Why you love mountains and the kids love the water? How do you
I don't know how it happened.
How do you match your
Well, they say opposites attract, so we find a way. That's how we do our solo travel. She does not like to go to the mountains. I get some time off, and I'm sure she enjoys that time off, and that's when she does her beaches. But if it's a family holiday, unfortunately or fortunately, water is involved, beaches. I'm not sure. Like I said, I was hoping that you would be able to suggest me something which is slightly, away from the ordinary, maybe have a bit of glamping involved, maybe have a bit of water involved, and definitely, like I said, no air travel. Yeah. So I'd say that 10 to 15 days, a fortnight is what would be most ideal. The kids can often be very noisy. So either I'd like a villa to myself or a bungalow to myself. Definitely not a hotel because the kids sometimes can be very noisy.
Do you want to do a lot of references that you want to focus on?
No, I think actually,
Is food a big part of your travel?
yes. So that's a good point. So gastronomy is definitely high up on our list. At least the wife and I. Kids are not too fussy, but one of them definitely has a lot of allergies, and for him, then a strict vegetarian, no dairy is how we go about it.
And do you want to have a lot of walking in there?
Oh, we love the whole walking part of it. Yes.
Okay, would you want to go somewhere where you can activities or somewhere where you're just more relaxed?
Okay, stop now. Okay. This went on for maybe about 5-7 minutes. How old are the kids? What does your wife do? You said that one of them is allergic to dairy. Does he have any more allergies? When is the last time he flew? Had we gone on, and I've done this like as a role play which goes on for half an hour. If you don't profile the decision influencers, you would never be able to get to the pain or the gain. What if all this air travel is not happening? What if he does not want a place where the kids being noisy can be a problem? How peculiar are your children, Viraj, that they cannot stay in a hotel? Yeah, so maybe this picture confuses all of us. Maybe one of the two kids I'm referring to is not human at all. And maybe if you know that, there's a big pain or gain opportunity that you would be able to capitalize on by telling me that, Viraj, do you know If you haven't done it already, a lot of the Marriott properties now, and there's a beautiful one that I'd like to recommend to you, which are pet friendly. And lo and behold, the one that I'm recommending to you actually has not just rooms, but villa options as well. And the game changer is right there waiting to happen. So I'm saying that for me, when I'm saying customer first, we are thinking, what fancy destination am I going to offer to him? And a lot of you I could see collectively said, what? No air travel, so no Mediterranean? Right? Viraj, what a loser. Where do you want to go? But why? Why? Right? So I say, why is Greece not an option for me is something that you have to figure, no? Right? So my whole point here is that for me, actually asking the right questions to truly understand what they have in mind is the big one. One thing that I've often noticed, my own team does this mistake very often. See, what happens is when you're writing a target, if you've got teams that are writing targets, you could be doing 4 meetings a day, you could be doing 5 meetings a week. But the point is, often the time when you're writing a target, you're just doing so many meetings that there's not enough time to prep for the meeting. For me, that meeting prep is where the magic truly happens. In the world of research, in the world of sales, it's called LOQ, line of questioning. And your line of questioning is something that should not come out of experience. You could be somebody who believes that your line of questioning will come out of your experience, but I truly believe that because every customer is unique, when you look at the LinkedIn profile, when you look at the profile of the company they represent, you've got to be able to create a LOQ for them, which is truly relevant and meaningful for them, for that individual. So to profile that individual and come up with the LOQ before you go in for the meeting is the kind of meeting prep that should definitely happen for important pitches. And that's not something which often happens. There should be 10 questions there. How many of you played the animal game with your kids or the guess who game, right? So essentially, I've thought of a celebrity or I've thought of an animal. You can ask me 10 questions and be able to guess. The first 2 or 3 times people play it like, Viraj, you can think of any animal. And in 10 questions, I have to guess it. I said, yeah. Like, how's that possible? I like, play it. And it will happen. So there are some questions. So essentially, the idea is to start wide, start open-ended. But by the time you come closer to the 10th question, you've done enough profiling in the first few questions to be able to come close to it, right? So what your LOQ is, what the equivalent of your animal game is, and if you haven't played the animal game, 101% play it with your kids, play it with your siblings, play it with people in office. It's a great game to play in office. It's a fantastic game to play for people in sales. It just works wonders for you to understand that if you ask the right questions is when you will get the right answers. So to have a 10 question LOQ is a big one for me. Yeah. The second one there, and I know that this has gone on for how much time? What time are we at? By the way, whatever we are talking about, is it relevant for you? Is this making sense? Yeah. Good to know. Good to know. So here's a quick one. I'm going to try and make it quick. So for the second part, I believed that I'm truly empathetic. Now I do a full day session on something called situational and tactical empathy. We're not going to go into that today. But I believe that how much ever empathetic you think you are, you actually may not be as empathetic as you think you are. And what do I mean by that? Very senior, let's call him Mr. Gupta. So Mr. Gupta is a CHRO of a large Fortune 500 company based out of Bombay. We followed up with him for a few weeks to give us a meeting. He says, okay, we are in Delhi, he's in Bombay. So he says, okay, come by, I'll give you an hour and I'd like to hear what is it that you have to offer. Meeting set, Monday morning, 9 a.m. We are supposed to be at Mr. Gupta's office in Bandra Kurla in Bombay. Flights booked, everything taken care of. Sunday at around 8 p.m., I get a message from Mr. Gupta saying, Viraj, unfortunately, the meeting that we had fixed up for tomorrow, I'll have to cancel it. I throw a fit. I said, Mr. Gupta, all flights are booked. We are coming to Bombay only to meet you. And now if you tell us that we cannot meet, it's rather unfortunate. I'd like it if you can reschedule it in the same day, and instead of the hour, you give me half an hour. She said, okay, Viraj, in that case. So by the way, no response for a bit. Finally, at about 11 p.m., I get another response saying, okay, Viraj, I've been able to figure this out. Come at 11 a.m. and like you suggested, please let's just keep this one for half an hour. Now I've got a whole pitch presentation which has been made for Mr. Gupta, right? So suddenly that hour has become half an hour. I want to impress him. So I want to make sure that I get the time enough to tell him everything I have to tell him. My partner and I walk into this meeting. Pleasantries exchange. I open my laptop. By the way, pardon my unparliamentary language, but after that day, I truly believe that decks are for dicks. We are so consumed by what we want to present that you're like, I put so much effort into this, I got to show my presentation. I truly believe the meeting begins once the presentation is over. That's now. But back then, greeting exchanged, laptop open, I'm straight away into my pitch mode. I can see that the man is a little distracted. Fortunate for me, my partner is somebody who goes into micro detailing. This is not Gotham, by the way, Abba. So my partner, White Ladder, is a friend of mine from college. Her name is Love. So Love notices things which nobody notices. And most of the things are things which he should not notice. You know, for example, one day we are driving back from Roorkee to Delhi and he's driving. I'm on my phone and he says, he's got a British accent because he spent a lot of time in the UK. He says, Viraj, did you notice that? So I look up from my phone and I'm like, what? He said, a flock of birds, and he mentioned some species. He said, a flock of birds always flies in a formation where there's one in the front, two behind it, then three, then four. But this time, lo and behold, there were two of them in the front. So I'm dumbfounded for a second. Then I tell Love, I said, Love, when you're driving at the speed of 80, please don't look at the birds. And if you do, please don't tell me because that gives me a heart attack. Right? So that's love for you. So in this meeting, half an hour in, he stops me and he says, Viraj, just 1 second. He said, Mr. Gupta, is everything okay? So Mr. Gupta says, yeah, please carry on. He says, no, Mr. Gupta, you seem distracted and I noticed there's a fresh band-aid on your hand. Is everything okay? Mr. Gupta says, actually, the reason I wanted to cancel the meeting today is because my daughter is undergoing a blood transfusion, 3rd stage. And, but don't worry, now already gone and given the blood, so I'm available for the rest of the day. And that's why I say decks are for, because I felt like such a, I shut the presentation and I said, I am so sorry, Mr. Gupta. I should have asked you when you said, let's postpone the meeting as to why you want to postpone the meeting. I said, I cannot carry on with this presentation anymore. If you'd like to go back to the hospital, we have a car on standby. Happy to drop you. He said, no, that's all right. But I would definitely have to leave soon. Now, as horrible as I felt, I obviously followed up with Mr. Gupta for the next few weeks if everything is okay. Fortunately, by the way, daughter's all right. Also, fortunately, by the way, Mr. Gupta, the client now. But I highly doubt I would have set a very good first impression on him with the sheer lack of empathy that I would have shown there. And I truly wonder that while I preach customer first, if on that occasion I was able to keep the customer first. And that really is the second one for me when it comes to edge to edge. You're here right now. And we all keep saying mindfulness. Well, the fact of the matter is that our mind is constantly running in 10 different directions. Especially for your sales teams, if you have sales team, and especially for you if you do sales on your own. Constantly in our mind, there are 3 things going on. 1, in this time, will I be able to do what I had planned? 2, am I making sense? 3, after this meeting, there are 2 more meetings. I'm already late for this one. And in your mind, you're already calculating what you're going to do, what your excuse. So your mind is not here. If mindfulness means that you're fully in the present, we all know that being fully in the present is not something which happens very easily. So what do I do now? I teach this course on tactical empathy. or situational empathy, and I practice it 100%. I would never walk into a meeting, number one, late. When they say don't be late for a meeting, it's not just about the first impression, making another person wait, not respecting them. But when you reach a 5 minutes early, it gives you time to settle down. It gives you time to get the lay of the land. It also gives you time to make notes of what you're going to compliment the client on in their office. And then I ensure that not only, and by the way, in those 5 minutes, chances are if you're meeting the big boss is not going to walk in 5 minutes early. You're going to have somebody with you who's your Spock, who could be somebody down the line. But 5 minutes of conversation with them gives you a lot of input as to the culture of that company, gives you a lot of input as to what the boss's personality is like. In those 5 minutes, you can figure a lot more and have that situational empathy, even if it does not come to you naturally. And then when the boss walks in, I make sure that now, for the first 5-8 minutes, I'm not pitching anything. I'm just talking like I would talk to somebody I'm meeting on a first date, or to somebody who I'm truly interested in knowing as a human being. So that human to human happens for the first 7-8 minutes. I would only get into the presentation when I see that they're getting edgy, that they now want me to start, or when they say start. Up until then, I will never open my deck. And I'll make sure if it is a 1 hour meeting, whatever I have to show to them is done in 20 minutes flat. So the remaining time is for us to talk, for them to truly get to know me, and for me to ask that questions list that I have on my LOQ. So that's the second one for me, which is empathy does not happen on its own. Mindfulness actually often leads to empathy, and that's what finally leads to edge-to-edge success. I truly believe it's a good idea to have whoever does sales, whether you do it on your own or your teams do it for you, whoever does sales, there should be a checkbox of some 10 things that you define for them as SOP. Because see, you may do it because you understood the value of it. But to make somebody else understand 5 minutes jaldi kyun jana hai, and for them to just believe you're anal about discipline, but for them to understand you're not anal about discipline, it's part of your SOP to be there 5 minutes early, because it enables pain, gain, opportunity profiling, which you otherwise will not get. Zoom meetings when the world was shut down, all training programs I was doing then, I would log in at least 20 minutes before that training program would start, because in those 20 minutes, there would be these 1 or 2, 3 people like me who would come early. Gives me an opportunity to get to know them, to have them on my side before 20 other people walk in. And those few minutes, I'm able to understand a lot more about why they are really attending this training, what their big challenges are. Do they have a big pitch happening with their own clients, and that's why their mind is distracted while they are in this training? There's a lot you can figure if instead of late, you're early. And I think that's a big one from a mindfulness point of view as well. Also, you would agree that there are times when, because you're running late, your mind is not fully here because it's already grappling with 10 other things. You feel so much more at ease, so much more in command and control and confident if you're just in time. So don't teach them as discipline when you're teaching your teams this whole idea. Teach them as what it enables as an opportunity for them. And that's really a game changer as far as sales is concerned, right? Folks, I know that I've spoken a lot. Here's my last one. And I end with this. Any pitch presentation you're delivering, whether it is to the investor or it is to a potential customer, I'd like to ask you, what should this pitch presentation answer? If I say there are 3 questions that any pitch presentation should answer, according to you, what are the 3 questions that any pitch presentation should answer? Any good pitch presentation? Fantastic. Okay, so building further context, when you're building a pitch presentation and you're looking at what is the universal structure of a good pitch presentation, what do you think are 3 big sections or 3 big sections, the 3 big questions that this presentation should answer? So not so much in terms of what you will ask them, but more in terms of, if I see 10 slides which are your pitch deck, what are the 3 questions to me as a customer or an investor? I hear some vibes. Come again? Oh, the mic is there. And the Simon Sinek here. Can I see a show of hands? So what does Simon Sinek say? So that's my last reminder for you, that come what may. A lot of us spend a lot of time on how. A lot of us spend a lot of time on what. There's very little time spent on why. Cynic says, and I believe in that philosophy, that there's a golden circle to decision making. There are three concentric circles to decision making. Right on the outside is what. Most people know what. If they've given you time of day, they know what you're going to sell to them. Most people also know how it works. I mean, if you were to tell me that, in social media, how does virality happen? In social media, what is the difference between impressions and engage? I know. What I don't know is, why should I work with you? Why should I give you more time? Why should my mind not switch off in this By the way, biggest of companies, and I do a lot of this with a lot of companies. We do sales training for TikTok, which is ByteDance. We do sales training for channel sales for Pepsi, channel sales for Coke, channel sales for Nestle, Amazon, consulting firms, Accenture. Lot of the pitch decks that I see are pitch decks that do a lot of what and how. There's hardly ever an answer directly to the why. And if it is there, it definitely is not right at the beginning. If you're pitching to big bosses, if you're pitching to CXOs, if you're pitching to leaders, they may give you time of day, but their mind is not fully with you unless you first answer a why very clearly.
Why is very like, for instance, they would say that they need more eyeballs on the product. So you have the why, like why you're going to work with this, but they don't. You want like a new strategy. So in that sense, evolution of how.
So, very interestingly, you're saying that often the why is very well defined. I'm saying why is the only thing that's elusive. Because how many times has it happened with you that the client gives you a brief? If you're a creative agency, if you're a design agency, if you're a services firm, you get the brief. You think you've turned around the brief perfectly. And then they say, Maza nahi aaya. Or they say, but this is not what we wanted. So I'm in fact saying that the stated why is never the why. The stated why, if it's written in 3 lines, the 3 in between the lines is where the why is hidden. And finding that why is not so easy. Again, I have a 15-year-old son at home. Often a time when I have to explain something to him and I'm in a hurry, I know and I feel guilty about it. I often go into consequences of, why this is not right. But do I answer his why to organically motivate him to not do or do what I want him to? Often a time not. Because it takes more patience, it takes more time to actually answer somebody else's why. Right? And everybody's why can be very different from each other. Somebody may be wanting to save their job. Somebody may be wanting to earn brownie points out of what you do for them. Somebody may only be doing this because they want a better price. Somebody may want to work with you because they truly believe that working with the top 10 agencies is what they should do. But everybody's why is different. And my only thought here, again, as far as a shift in the communication on your website is concerned, in the shift as far as the communication on your pitch decks is concerned, in the shift as far as your narratives is concerned, is that shift from telling them why you are the best to what they truly want out of you in terms of either answering the pain or gain, right? So getting to that why, or getting to that golden circle where decisions are made, is the big one. And again, there's this whole, and I'll try and see, by the way, I never used to do this before, but I've been prompted by the social media Gen Z that we have at office. They said, you must leave a prompt with them to connect with you on social media. Yeah, so here is the prompt. The prompt is that for this whole why, how do you identify somebody's why? We've got this LOQ, a 10 question format, which tells you 3 whys. 1, the why of the organization or the brand. 2nd, why of their current problem. And 3rd, why of that individual. Some of the whys are fear, anxiety, or ego driven as well. How do you get to that why? Ping me on Instagram, ping me on LinkedIn and I'll be sure to share this 10 question LOQ with you that you can utilize in order to find the why. But if there is a CTA or call to action today, my CTA is look at your pitch deck, look at your website, and see if it is actually answering whys for the client or it is answering your what and how. And if you see it starting with a lot of what and how, first put a why in there. I used to make our introduction often a time as saying that we are rated amongst the top 10 contextualized learning and training companies in Asia. That used to be my opening lines. Now, often a time I say that because solutions for you need to be very, very contextual to you, you must work with an agency that specializes in contextualized learning solutions. And oh, by the way, we rank amongst the top 10 contextualized training solution companies in Asia. So it's a flip. And that's where the why comes in. Why should I work with you? Because your problems are unique. You need a contextualized solution, and thus you should work with us. Right? So if you were to kind of sum it all up, where did I keep the clicker? Why am I going back? Sorry. Thank you very much. So if I was to sum it all up, I'm saying for me, selling is less about the pitch, it's more about making that human to human connect happen. And in that human to human connect, pack is one way of ensuring that you get the building blocks right. And pack for me, like I said, starts with you identifying and cultivating your power circle, goes on to saying, how do I really go about cultivating this power circle? I'm saying that make sure that you and whoever you're sending to market are truly your ambassadors. And within that ambassadors, don't forget there are the 3 P's that apply, right? As long as you're getting those 3 P's right, chances are your ambassadorship is working right. Remember the Whitney Wolf way of doing it. And last but not the least, a lot of people say customer first, but tactically on ground, what does it truly mean to put customer first? I'm saying number one, your ability to ask the right questions. That's a big one, right? Number two, your ability to be mindful when they're giving you these answers. By the way, I started my career in PR. I used to work with a company called Perfect Relations back in the mid 90s. Perfect Relations still ranks amongst the better PR agencies in the country. And Sudeep Majumdar, my first boss, he taught me something which now I call the Tommy syndrome. So he in meetings would make me take down the notes of what the client's brief is. He would take notes like what the name of the dog is. Yeah. So one meeting, he just wrote one word. Came out of the meeting, I was very curious. I was a rookie then. I said, boss, what did you write? He opened it. The name of the dog is the only thing he noted in that meeting because the guy happened to mention the name of the dog. I call that the Tommy syndrome. So for me, often a time, mindfulness has a lot to do with your ability to pick things which you may not even utilize today. But because you know them, it's an insight, it's a piece of information which you can leverage later. Right? And last but not the least, of course, it's been a pleasure interacting with all of you. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. So, like I said, I do know that a lot of what I would have said today, and that's my big one for any training that I attend. We're all very wise, all of us, at the end of a training. You're like, a lot of this I already knew. I didn't need this 1 hour for this. Wise. You already know, of course, you know, been there, done that. Second, you're like, yeah, but this does not work for me. And third, that, oh yes, out of the 10 things, here is one that makes sense. And I truly believe is that one which you should focus on. A day-long training, a 1 hour long session, irrespective. There cannot be more than 1 or 2 really good actionable takeaways. But if you have that even one actionable takeaway, my thought is really follow it through. Really try and apply it. Really rack your brain on how I'm going to make this happen. And this is because of Abha, because of the beautiful community that you're building. This is my promise that along the way, if you think that there was something that I said here today which made sense to you, but you've not been able to apply, I'm not going to charge you coaching fees for it. Do reach out. I'll be very happy spending another hour, hour and a half with you on figuring it out in your context, in the context of your business, right? Happy to do that. Thank you very much.
Viraj, thank you so much. I think, I just want to say, didn't he like go at this with full on energy? It's not been an hour, it's been 2 hours. Can we give him a
Oh, wow, is it 2 hours? Well, I must applaud for you. You jailed me for 2 hours.
I think the sign of a workshop that's really resonated is when we have a captive audience like this. So thank you so much. Something from us, you want to come, girls?
Oh, wow.
Put in all the work. So, yeah,
Super duper. Thank you
so
very much. Thank you so
We'd
much.
love
Thank you
to
so
get a
much.
picture with you later.
Yeah, that'll be my pleasure.
Yeah. Come, we're just stealing your picture for And I'm going to let you guys, I know you'll have some questions and you'd want to mingle with Viraj. So we have some drinks and some canapes, so if everyone would like to come and
Super.
mingle, and maybe we can get a group picture too. Can we do that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we good?
Thank you so
All right. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much.